Hello, and welcome to the BlockSolid podcast, where we talk about the evolution of technologies, blockchain, property, and anything that enhances and revolutionizes the world as we know it, and how we, the owners, the buyers, the renters, the investors, and the innovators can benefit from it all. I'm Yael Tamar, CEO and co-founder of SolidBlock, a pioneer startup in real estate tokenization, and I'd like to welcome Lisa Carmen Wang. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. So Lisa, you are a 4 times national champion and Hall of Fame gymnast turned serial entrepreneur. So I'm so excited to have you on my podcast, and I'd love for you to tell us more about what you're doing today.
Sure. I'm the founder of the Bad Bitch Empire. We are building unapologetic worth and wealth for women. My definition of a bad bitch is a woman who unapologetically takes charge of her body, her boundaries, and her bank account. And the genesis of being a bad bitch is really around breaking free of good girl brainwashing, which are all the societal messages that tell women you have to be polite and pleasing and perfect and obedient and not be too assertive, not be too aggressive, not take up too much space, and ultimately to not demand your worth. And what I realized from just my own experiences going from a USA national champion gymnast to working in corporate finance at a $15 billion hedge fund to building my own company, really breaking barriers and closing the funding gap for female founders is that at the end of the day, you can be a good girl and that will get you a good grades and that will give you a good job. But if you want to be a leader, if you want to live life on your own terms, you have to become a bad bitch. And that's really what I teach in my company now. And we have media, we have education, we have investment, and a lot of things that I'm excited to share with the bad bitches out there.
Wow, what a message. The Bad Bitch Empire. Well, I love how you went from the champion in gymnastics to a whole other kind of bad bitch of business and crypto. Can you tell me how that process happened?
Sure. So I think as a gymnast, the most important skills I've learned was really the ability to focus, to stay committed, to be disciplined. At the age of 9, I said, I'm going to go to the Olympics. So I set a big decade-long dream. And that's something that I think is really invaluable, which is the bravery and courageousness it takes to dream big, and not only to dream big, but then to execute upon it. For me, that was going to the gym day in and day out, 8 to 9 hours a day, training, falling and getting back up again and putting a smile on my face each time, no matter how much pain I was in, and to say, you know what, let's keep going because the show must go on. And I'm the only one who's going to make it happen if I want to achieve this dream. And so I think at the end of the day, what I really gained from that was the ability to trust myself that no matter what happens, I can get back up. I have the ability to pick myself up again. And that has served me as an entrepreneur, that has served me as an investor. And I think those were some of the really good parts that I brought into my career. On the flip side, there's with everything that's good, there's always, a dark side. And I think the dark side of gymnastics was it's a really authoritative sport where you have to abide by rules. You have to seek external approval. You're waiting for the judges to give you your score. There's very critical control around your body and your movement and your face and your presentation. And you learn to rely on external validation for your success. And so while I learned how to be a perfect gymnast and to succeed and to win the gold medals, what I didn't learn was my own internal confidence and self-worth. And that came from something inside, not something outside. And so it was really only after going through a lot of deep internal work and going through my career and realizing that no one's going to give me permission to be powerful. I'm the only one who can do that. So I say a woman steps into her full power, not when she is finally given permission to do so, but when she realizes that she never needed it in the first place.
Wow, that's such an important lesson to anybody who is trying to start a company. As a woman specifically, is to have to relearn something that society has been teaching us over and over again, that, you have to seek an external validation and you have to relearn or unlearn those patterns. And you've done that several times over. So I love how you're bringing the message to the world now with the bad bitch. So why Web3? How did you get to the Web3 and crypto space?
So I had started angel investing and really started thinking about my own investment portfolio. I've built a decade-long career in female empowerment, closing the funding gap for female entrepreneurs, and then moving into the investment space and then the crypto space. I saw the same trends that were happening, where it's just women were excluded. It wasn't really safe spaces. The education and jargon was very off-putting if you weren't in the initial group of men who joined into the community. And so I really started getting involved myself first because I had to walk the walk. And so my skills, I'm a great community builder, I'm a great communicator, brander, marketer. And I realized that those skills were invaluable to the crypto space, where you have these deeply technical founders who have no idea how to communicate and how to market themselves. And the whole basis of Web3 and crypto's success is mainstream adoption. And if you don't know how to communicate authentically and actually drive engagement and user growth, your company is going to fail and the entire space is going to fail. And so rather than question if I was good enough for the space, which I think often happens when you're a woman or you're new to a different industry, I actually leaned into my strengths and said, I know that my skills are going to be invaluable here. And so I leveraged that into being an advisor, an investor, a coach to crypto CEOs, and really dove into the space. And then once I was in the space, I started thinking about how can I share this education? How can I share the learnings and get more women involved to make sure that we are integral players and investors in building the new economic system?
That's really cool. So what are your criteria for investing in a startup?
So, of course, there are the typical terms, which are, I look at the TAM, which is how big is the market opportunity? How's the team? Do I have conviction in the founding team? What's the tech? And then what's the traction? Are there early signs of success and customer adoption that people actually want the product? But then beyond that, there's really values alignment. So I'm very, very strong on making sure that people are aligned with their values and they're actually walking the walk. So at Bad Bitch Empire, we really think about collaboration, taking action, and really being supportive and open-minded. And so I look for teams that have strong values, and are they aligned with the Bad Bitch Empire values? We look at the diversity of the team. Is it female-led? Do they have women on their advisory board? Are they looking at a diverse pipeline of candidates as they're recruiting and building their team? And then the third thing, outside of all of the team, TAM, tech, and traction, is the ability for Bad Bitch Empire to support them. Like, is this a company that we can really co-create and co-build with and help them become category leaders? Because what I have built over the years that I've worked in the space is invaluable media relationships, invaluable investor and operator and relationships, and a community of really empowered women. So Bad Bitch Empire is not just investing. We are a community, a brand, and a media empire that can really turn companies into category leaders. So that's not something to be taken lightly. It's, if we're going to invest in a company, is this a company that is able to really harness the things that we bring to the table and adopt our network and use it to the full capacity? I
love it. I love the whole environment and the synergetic relationships and the ecosystem, and us being a part of a few venture capital ecosystems with each VC fund that invested in us, has proven so valuable, from doing an event with the Draper Associates and Tim Draper yesterday, which brought, something like 600 people from the ecosystem for the fund looking for new and exciting startups in the fractional real estate space, to our other investors, Angels, that is an angel fund focused on also diversity and LGBTQ. And a cool thing about them as well, they're helping bring board members and team members that are more diverse. And I think that will make everybody stronger, right? And like you said, helping these entrepreneurs and that are mainly white male kind of to get new perspective and help them market for a different world and different environment, different client base. So I'm really excited to see which startups you're going to have in your ecosystem and which founders you're going to have in your ecosystem. And by the way, where do we sign up for this Bad Bitch Fund or Bad Bitch Club?
Yeah, so we're going to be announcing soon applications for the Bad Bitch Pitch. And so the Bad Bitch Pitch will be an opportunity to pitch the Bad Bitch Empire investor ecosystem.
Nice. Very cool. So really, really excited for that. And, we'll definitely spread the word as much as we can and plug you guys and plug you ladies to the ecosystem. All right. So let's talk a little bit about crypto and blockchain innovation. What do you see as the next big thing or the next big trend we should be focusing on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of the things that have come up during the bull run have there's a lot of hype related to it, but I do think that there's the evolution of some of these things. For example, with NFTs, there is a lot of hype around just projects that didn't really offer utility. And I think the next stage is going to be the communities that have brought genuine value and have real members and have thought through utility. That's where NFTs are going to evolve towards. And so it will be, I think, less so about these large collections and, iterations of PFPs. And it will be a lot more about what is the actual utility I'm going to get? How is it going to connect the digital world with the IRL world, right? Because I think we brought in a very excited, I'd say, niche group of early adopters in Web3 who are really excited about the metaverse and digital. But I think the majority of the world is still, it's quite skeptical because it's digital only. And so I think what we'll see is how are we going to leverage blockchain technology and DAOs and NFTs to actually connect it to real world utility? And I think whatever form that takes is whoever answers that question and does it effectively will really be, I think, the next innovators in the space. I think there's a lot to be done in terms of commerce and fashion and how we're going to adopt the digital assets into real world assets that also have value.
Oh, I love that so much, what you just said, and bringing value into the real world and connecting assets. So our startup Solid Block connects assets in the real world with their digital securities twin, which allows to facilitate all kinds of transactions that are just so difficult in the real world for real estate and other assets, distributions of income, purchasing a part of the asset, sale and trade, asset management, all of that. So I think that this really is the next big thing. I've seen quite a few interesting startups related to using NFTs for other things completely, right? So things like KYC AML, and it's also something we're utilizing, being able to have these tokens that are stored in a wallet that you cannot actually even transfer, right? This is kind of your rite of passage, your identity that you can use across different platforms in Web3 or even in Web2, right? So there's some kind of in-between platforms that are using Web3 features for authentication, KYC, and so on, right? The majority of the platforms are still in the Web2. And then I've seen other startups like Wizio that take DAOs to the next level and apply them to very, very traditional legal structures and wherever governance is really needed, right? Not making up new type of ecosystems, but really taking a very traditional place like a fund where you need governance, right? So there are quite a few applications out there that excite me so much because they're not looking for a nail for which their hammer will work, but actually, looking for a problem and solving, or not even looking, people have problems they need to solve every day, right? That's exciting. Mm-hmm. Have you seen something like that you want to share?
In terms of companies that are dealing with real
companies or trends, bad bitch type of applications.
Yeah. I mean, I think one company that's been pretty cool is like DressX, which is really taking, fashion and the metaverse and bringing it into the real world. I love Mavion NFT. We brought her into the Bad Bitch Empire podcast. She's recently collaborated with Rebecca Minkoff to support independent artists, to bring digital asset value, but also real world, fashion assets. And I think the ability to support independent creators, independent designers, as well as, get women excited about this new asset class is something that's been really cool to see.
For sure. I mean, women are all about fashion, and not that men are not into fashion, many are, but we're the consumers. We end up spending most of our money on this stuff. So we might as well, right? But even though we are spending most of the money, the majority of the designers that are well known are male. What can we do? But there's so many female designers. And I love this so much that it seems like the whole Web3 space and the NFT space is leveling the playing field. And so I hope it continues, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. So Lisa, you talked about the different criteria that you're using to apply to choosing startups and angel investing, but you also are gearing at least the bitch empire to female, angel investors and helping them to take, advantage and control of their finances and so on and so forth. So can you talk about how a woman can become a successful angel investor and kind of integrate herself into this world of, VCs and just investing in alternative and risky assets?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So angel investing is really, I think, the opportunity to maximize returns as well as impact, especially because it's a living and breathing asset class, unlike any other, where you get to invest in a founder, a business at the earliest stages and watch it grow over time. It is a long-term investment because at the early stages, you can take anywhere from 5 years to a decade to really start seeing returns. But I think it's when you think about your overall investment portfolio, if you are an investor who wants to do that, who can afford to take some riskier bets in your investment portfolio, and you really want to support the types of technological innovation that you want to see in the world, that's where angel investing comes in. And traditionally, angel investing has been limited to a very small group of wealthy investors who it was a boys' club that only certain men get access to. But I think with technology, with digital communities, we've started to see the ability to democratize access to these investment deals and for people to invest at much lower amounts. There's opportunities to invest for as little as $1,000 now if you are a accredited investor, and as little as $100 if you're a non-accredited investor, just a consumer. And so at the end of the day, when you think about, if you had invested just $20K in Uber's first round, that could be hundreds of millions of dollars today. But of course, most of those investors were men because women just weren't given access to those clubs. But now I think as more and more female founders are building companies, as more and more women are invested in creating inclusive technology, because we're seeing the impact of what happens when you have a homogenous type of technological innovation created by a homogenous group of founders, it's not representative. And so I think angel investing, you can make anywhere from on the low end 2-3x, which is good for an angel investor, all the way to 100x, if not more, if you really hit the jackpot. But the way to invest is really thinking about diversifying your portfolio and investing in a large number of startups, because a lot of times when you are a solo or a brand new angel investor, your friend might come up to you and say, "Hey, I have an investment." And you say, "I like my friend. Maybe I'll put all my money in that friend." But the numbers game is that it's much better to put in, say, $1,000 into 50 companies than one $50K check into one company, because you do need to spread that risk across. And so that's what the ability to being part of the Bad Bitch Empire is. We share deals that we're seeing, and you have the opportunity to invest alongside us and invest with a community of Bad Bitch investors.
I love that. I think also a little bit of hand-holding and relying on your underwriting or on due diligence also helps, right? To have the pros that made that 3, 6, 100x. And I think investing, like anything else in life, there's experience factor in it. Sometimes it's luck, but diversification can probably bring the two together. That's really cool. And I love how you talk about impact, because a lot of the investors, especially now, millennial investors, are looking at how does this help people like me, and how does it change the world, right? And everybody has some sort of a cause that they're behind. So I think that, first of all, I haven't read the statistics, but the female entrepreneurs that I've met and come across have these big visions and, see a lot beyond the money, and that might be coming at a detriment in some cases, but I mean, I love the passion and the vision. And this impact is very, very important to amplify in today's world. And I think in crypto specifically and the Web3. So I love that factor that you mentioned. Yeah, and the women angels will create and help all of us kind of get ahead, right? And all of us can get ahead and then bring more friends to and teach them how to do this, right? That's kind of the mission.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Awesomeness. So tell me about kind of your background and your family. I understand that you're a child of immigrants, and I'm also a child of immigrants and an immigrant myself. But a lot of my stories always, sometimes they start with, oh, I learned about inflation when I was standing in line for ice cream. And all of a sudden you get all these zeros, on your currency, like back in Ukraine, right? So I wonder if your parents influenced you in some way to become a gymnast or an entrepreneur, and what do they think about what you're doing today?
Well, I think what my parents instilled in me was a hard work ethic and good values, and really just doing the things that are best for you and for the world and for your family. And so I think being an entrepreneur was not part of that initial path. I think because what most immigrant parents want is for their kids to be secure financially and safe and do better than they did. And so oftentimes that looks like being a banker or a lawyer or a doctor, something stable, certainly not an entrepreneur. And so when I left my corporate finance job and jumped into entrepreneurship, we definitely had a lot of existential crisis around that. But I think I've continued to show that it is a path that makes me happy, that creates the impact and purpose. And of course, there were some sacrifices along the way, because it is much easier, to have a job that just pays a salary and you walk in, you clock out. But I think that also has its sacrifice if it's, I don't know the exact statistic, but something like 80-90% of people don't like what they do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think there's always some sort of sacrifice. But in my case, I was unwilling to sacrifice my own happiness and my own values to do something just for safety and security.
Absolutely. I think there is an aptitude test that kind of tests on different features of your character. There is a driver, remember that one. And then there is a service type of oriented or operations oriented person. And then there is a friendly socialite type of person. And then there is, one more type, which I think is more technical and analytical. And so, if somebody who's a super driver, I think they're going to suffer so much being in a 9-to-5, especially having a boss over their head. So definitely causes a lot of unhappiness. So it seems like you're a straight D, Lisa. And by that, I mean a straight driver, if anybody had any doubts. So Lisa, I read that you're coming out with a book. Tell me more about what you're writing.
Yeah. So the book I'm writing is called The Bad Bitch Business Bible. It will come out in about a year, but that's really my Bible of all the lessons I've learned to date around my career. And I think the things that they will never teach you in school about being a powerful woman and a bad bitch in business. So I share the mistakes that I made in being a good girl and how I overcame that and what lessons I would instill around everything from how do you take up space to how do you assert your voice to how do you own your wins and really celebrate yourself? How do you call out bullshit in the workplace when it comes to misogyny or harassment? How do you think about investing your assets and really uplifting other women? And so it's really some of these life lessons that I think you only learn from experience. And I hope that the readers from it will find that empowerment and motivation to really speak up for themselves and assert their worth in the workplace and in life.
I love that. I have two alternative titles for you. One is a good girl to a bad bitch, and the other one is coming of age as a bad bitch. So, because I think in general, right, it's kind of like we're coming of age at the age of 40. Like for me, for example, is, you've done certain, or maybe at the age of 35 when I kind of started seriously investing in assets and real estate and so on. And they don't teach you this at school. And certainly they don't teach you this in the beginning of your career. And trying to get ahead in the corporate world and get to like the best role possible in the corporate ladder. And you're not even thinking about this parallel world of being the bad bitch, right? And yeah, you've been told all your life that you have to be a good girl, you have to, make money or get a stable position, and maybe buy a house and, save for retirement. There's like this whole alternative path that if you don't explore right now in the current environment, you're out, right? So I'm so excited that people will get to read this and maybe get to these conclusions much earlier, right, than a lot of us did. So get saved while you can.
Yeah.
I love your message, Lisa. It's just so inspiring. Yeah, I'm happy that we have your podcast and your group and your network for startups to tap into. I feel like there's a lot of benefit for startups to be able to rely on their VC or their investor to spread their message and to collaborate with other startups and other women and entrepreneurs within the network. I think the network effect is huge. So I can't wait for your fund to grow and to participate in it as well, and be an angel investor there as well. So we can find you on badbitchempire.com.
Yep. Yeah. badbitchempire.com, and I'm Lisa Carmen Wang on all social channels.
Amazing. So thanks for joining me on the BlockSolid podcast. It was great having you. And you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or by visiting our website at solidblog.co/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to rate and review and spread the word. And the full version of this podcast is on YouTube. Thanks for listening. See you next time.